The NBA Cup is back. What is it? What are the odds that the Knicks advance? Should they even want to? We get into it all now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? You are Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I want to remind you, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. I also wanted to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And remember to hit that subscribe button when you're watching on YouTube so you're with us each and every day. And that auto download function on your favorite podcast platform of choice, so you always have us with you on the go. But who's encouraging this parasitic codependent relationship? I'm Gavin, Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, the Saturday host of the Locked On NBA podcast. He is Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of The Strickland, the greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. Check them out on all forms of social media at thestrick.land. Alex, it is that time of year again, the holiday season. But our religion is the NBA Cup. And it is questionable how excited we are, despite the fact that I just said it is our religion. But we did think it was worth a primer to take you through exactly how it works now that it's back in our lives. And of the two of us, you're the NBA Cup expert, so I'll leave it to you. How does this thing work?
And by expert, I read the same article that I read last year, explaining all the rules.
That counts. That puts you top 1% of top 1%. So.
Probably, yeah. So, I mean, if you were watching on Tuesday and you were confused about why they were playing on a disgusting, gaudy court, and, you know, the announcers kept saying things about the NBA Cup, you might be like, what the heck is the NBA Cup? Is that the in-season tournament? Yes, the NBA, in an attempt to continue pushing this product that, if you can't tell, I'm not the most enthusiastic about still to this day, but we'll talk about that a little later, in an effort to make it, I guess, more pleasing and seem more worthwhile. They have now called it the NBA Cup instead of the in-season tournament. So the way that this whole thing works, there are two different parts of it. There's group play and then there's knockout rounds. So right now we're in group play. It officially started when the Knicks beat the Sixers the other day, or at least for the Knicks it did, and it started all around the league on Tuesday. And so right now we're in group play. There's 6 groups of 5 teams in the league. Each conference has 3 groups of 5. Each team in every group plays each other once. So there's 4 games for each team in each group. 2 of them are home games, 2 of them are away games, and those all count towards the group play standings. The Knicks group, Gavin, consists of Philly, which we already knew, and then also Brooklyn and Charlotte and Orlando, in that order as far as when they will be playing these guys. And it all, as with last year, occurs during the regular season, and just sort of tries to add a little extra zest to a number of regular season games every year.
Yeah. And look, last year, we'll get into this more later. Like, I think it unquestionably did that. Like it did create some hype. It did create some excitement that otherwise wouldn't be there early in the season, which is essentially its purpose. But after all the group play has finished, the winners of each group advance to the knockout rounds. And there's also a wild card for each conference. So the team in any of those groups that has the best record, but did not kind of get through by winning the group, has an opportunity to get through. The Knicks last year were the wild card team. In the event of a tie in either the group or the wild card stage, the tiebreakers go like this in order. It is head-to-head record in group play, point differential in group play, total points scored in group play, record from the 2023-24 NBA regular season, and finally a random drawing in the unlikely scenario that 2 or more teams are still tied following that insane litany of tiebreakers. That actually might be the biggest overall selling point of the NBA Cup, getting to see teams ruthlessly run up the score like it's a game of NBA 2K to win the eventual tiebreaker. I did see, I think it might have been LeBron. I'm trying to remember. There was some star player who commented on this recently and said he wished it mattered every game because, like, you know, then like fans pay for the full 48 minutes. You actually get the full 48 minutes. Maybe you lose some crucial developmental garbage time for guys like Tyler Kolek and Ariel Hukporti, but I think that part is actually pretty great.
Yeah, I like it as far it's the only thing that makes me interested in the NBA Cup games. I do think that if it was happening more than 4 times a year, you'd probably see more fights in the NBA,
Hmm.
which maybe is a selling point to some people, maybe is not as much a selling point, but definitely it lets you be disrespectful on purpose and break sort of some cultural taboos within the NBA. But it is kind of funny to see. I mean, I hadn't seen those comments from LeBron, but that is kind of funny just considering like the biggest thing in the league right now is just that all the players are injured and or load managing and or everything else and don't even seem to really be caring about the restrictions put on them as far as like awards anymore, at least not in the case of some players. And so if, in that case, I feel like that's more the issue lately is just the way that the season load is affecting players, and I feel like that's what fans maybe care a little more about than getting to see like the Knicks or in the case of LeBron, the Lakers run it up against the Washington Wizards on a random Wednesday in January and have that matter in some way. But whatever. Anyway, so once we get past those crazy tiebreakers and all that stuff, which I think will almost definitely come into play because last year it's just 4 games is just not enough to create like a difference enough in records to be like, "Oh, yeah, there'll definitely be a definitive wild card team." It's like, "No, there's only 4 games. There's only so many ways that can go." Your team can either be 0-4, 1-3, 2-2, or 3-1, or 4-0. That's it. There's 5 potential
Yeah.
outcomes of 4 games. So, like, you just gotta have either more games in this NBA Cup or what, if you don't want it to just come down to point differential every time. And so point differential will almost definitely come into play at this point. But anyway, once you get past that, you get to the knockout rounds. And then in the knockout rounds, it becomes a single elimination tournament with 4 teams in each conference. Again, it's the 3 group winners and then the 1 wild card team for each conference. The quarterfinals are on December 10th and 11th on the higher seeds home court. And then the semifinals take place in Vegas on a neutral site, at least for now, until Vegas gets an expansion team sometime in the next few years. The semifinals are December 14th in Vegas, and then the finals are December 17th, where the East winner faces off against the West winner. This is the part that I will definitely be talking about in our final segment when we talk about whether this is a good or bad idea. The final game, once again, counts outside of any statistics or record implications of the regular season. It is effectively for the 2 teams that have the quote privilege of making it there, an 83rd regular season game that they get no credit for otherwise, other than determining the winner of this NBA Cup. And that's it. Even the stats don't count. You don't even get to pad your stats for the whole season or whatever. So I find that to be kind of a bummer, but yeah, that is how things ultimately end up going in the NBA Cup here.
Wait, can I clarify? Because last year, didn't the 83rd game, the winner got an extra win, right? Wasn't that supposed to be like
Nope.
the prize?
It exists outside of the whole, and that happened last year too. It exists outside of the regular season.
Oh,
yeah,
that's stupid.
There's no bearings whatsoever.
Well, shouldn't the whole point be that the winner gets an extra win, and that's like the incentive to win it?
You might think so, or you might hope that there would be some form of playoff implication at all. Like,
yeah,
I mean, we could talk about this let's save this part for the final.
Sure. Yeah,
I think there are ways to make this better. I just think it's stupid right now.
Right.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah. I had a suggestion last year that I'm gonna run back again this year, but that's not great. Anyways, final rules. All the other games played count as regular season games. Winning team and runner-up get some prize money. So that was allegedly like the push last year was that like the bench guys who really need it. Like for some of them, they're maybe not quite doubling their salary, but like it is substantial money for the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th guys on your roster. So like I guess that's kind of a fun motivator for everyone. And if your team doesn't qualify, they just play regular season games against other teams that didn't qualify. So who's in the next group? Will they beat them? How are those teams playing as of now? We will get into all that next. Before we tell you, maybe you've understood by our heavily implying one way or another, but if we think it's a good idea or not, all that and more next on Locked On Knicks. But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at Game Time. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite team play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'm going to do this live for you guys. I'm typing into my computer Game Time Knicks Suns because this guy I mentioned, I moved to Arizona. I live very close to the Suns arena, and I want to go to that game. It's on the 20th, so it's a little over, or I'd say it's 6 days away from me now. And they have tickets for Knicks Suns starting at $19. For anyone who's ever tried to get one at MSG, you know that is nearly impossible. And that is thanks to the brilliance that is the Game Time Picks feature. But where this goes up even another level is the Game Time lowest price guarantee, which means if you find lower price tickets on a different site, they'll credit you with 110% of the difference. So let's just say like I found tickets for $18 on like whatever like competitor. I could save even more money by going back to Game Time, using that lowest price guarantee and getting that 110% difference to get the cheapest ticket possible. And it means it is literally the cheapest ticket every single time. So there's never a reason not to use the lowest price guarantee. But I also want to tell you a little bit more about Game Time Picks. Its curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNICS code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, what's up, guys? We are back on Locked On Knicks. What does the Knicks group actually look like this year? So they played and beat the Sixers already. The rest of the group, the Nets, the Hornets, the Orlando Magic. Alex, where do you want to start on these teams?
I mean, we may as well start on Brooklyn, right? Just go in order. So they're facing Brooklyn tonight. They'll face Charlotte on November 29th, and they'll face Orlando on December 3rd. As far as the home away split, excuse me, on those, they are facing, they already faced Philly on the road, and they'll get Charlotte on the road in Charlotte. And then they have Brooklyn tonight at home, and they'll have Orlando at home on December 3rd. But Brooklyn coming into this game 5-7. So fairly similar record to the Knicks thus far. Cam Thomas and Dennis Schroeder, I think, have both been scoring really well, both at around 20 points per game. Granted, both smaller guards. So I think that in theory, the Knicks should have the defensive firepower to contain these guys. To even if it takes like throwing a Deuce McBride out there for long extended minutes to guard Cam Thomas or whatever. Hopefully Mikal Bridges can, contain Dennis Schroeder, and then obviously you have OG Anunoby roaming around there too. And he would probably be on Cam Johnson, just ensuring that he doesn't get hot from three. But I think the Knicks should in theory have good personnel to handle this matchup. Cam Johnson has been playing well as well. He's averaging 16 points, 4 boards, 3 assists on 47, 38, 86 splits. So that's really solid. But my biggest thing, Gavin, I think that plays into this game for me, given recent events, is I don't think that Nick Claxton or Noah Clowney are going to do much to stop Karl-Anthony Towns from doing whatever it is that he wants to do. And if that's the case, then I think the Knicks have a chance to run away with this game, because Cat is playing arguably the best offensive ball of his career right now, working with Jalen Brunson and just with this offense in general. His passing seems to be taking a bit of a leap recently, but mostly just the threes are going in over 50% of the time. He's just charging like a bull in a china shop into the paint right now. He's rebounding, I would say, as good or better than he ever has in his career. And neither of those guys are particularly imposing on offense. So I don't think the Cat's in a huge risk of getting into foul trouble here. So I really like their chances against the Nets in this game.
Yeah, I actually just looked it up, because to me on paper, Nick Claxton is kind of a decent matchup for Cat, just because he moves his feet so well for a big, and that's where we've seen Cat just killing. I mean, we saw with Nikola Vucevic the other night, right? Like bigs that are either slow moving or staying in drop, like Bam was staying in drop, so he was bombing threes. And then if you have slow feet, like he's just been torching guys off the dribble. I actually think Claxton can stay with him. The question kind of is like, could Cat just shoulder bump him and just kind of shove him out of the way, because Claxton is a relatively skinny guy. Cat certainly has some bulk on him, but I just looked it up. Cat has he's been pretty good against the Nets, like certainly early in his career, but then even like just like the last few years, like 28-9-4 last time against the Nets. Before that, 27-10-3, 22-14-5, 23-7-2, 31-12-5, 36-14-3 back in 2019. Like he like since the Nets have gotten Nick Claxton, like he has generally been a beast. So you're probably right on the mark with that. Just to reiterate what you were going for there, Dennis Schroeder has been ridiculous this season, like shooting like 49% from the field. I think something like, let's see, 46% from three on 6.5 attempts per game. The Knicks have to do a good job running him off the line. And I think it'll be a really good test for the Knicks because their defense, like we didn't really get a chance to talk about this in the Philly game a ton, but without Tyrese Maxey, they weren't really tested at the point of attack, which is where we've seen them have issues just because of Tom Thibodeau's insistence that they play drop and they don't switch. They don't really like hedge and recover. Like they just play straight drop. And like when other teams have like really talented scoring guards, you see them getting torched, and you've seen Mikal Bridges like not really navigating screens as well as he's known to be able to navigate screens and get into trouble. So guys like Schroeder, guys like Cam Thomas, who's at 24 a game this year, could give them a little bit of trouble if the Knicks don't make some adjustments. Maybe it'll help that Bridges is obviously very familiar with those guys since he was teammates with all of them last year. I think this is a good opportunity for Mikal Bridges to have a breakout offensive game, maybe drop 30 or something in his FU game. So that'll be pretty interesting. But the next team the Knicks play is the Charlotte Hornets. That game is on November 19th. And the Charlotte Hornets have been sneaky solid so far this season, 4-7, which in general is nothing to write home about. But for the Hornets, like those 4 wins are solid. They started off 4-4. I think they've lost their last 3. But some good underlying stats. They're second in the NBA in 3-point rate so far. That feels like getting Charles Lee from the Celtics, and he's kind of incorporating that Celtic style of like literally just shoot as many threes as humanly possible. LaMelo Ball has been transcendent, 30 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 45% from the field, 38% from 3, 85% from the foul line. I've gotten to watch a few Hornets games. Like I've never seen him look this good in my life. Like the confidence with which he's like putting up like huge amounts of threes, like at times shooting like almost flat-footed from 30 feet. Like he just seems really, really in his bag right now. Brandon Miller is yet to totally get going, but he's someone who could maybe turn the corner very quickly, and he torched the Knicks this preseason, so we'll see what that looks like. They're also, I think this is the most telling stat to me in terms of the Knicks. They are top 5 in preventing corner threes. Of course, that is where OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges have absolutely feasted this year, so that will be a fun battle to see if the Knicks can still get to those shots, even with the Hornets very, very good at stopping them. But I think they're more of a threat than they were in past years because the talent is getting a lot better between Miller, between Ball, between, as much as he's not a great person, Miles Bridges, and Charles Lee is a very good coach. So I think the Knicks could actually get a surprising challenge if they're not on their A game there.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of those matchups that would be similar to this Chicago game, in this previous game that we just saw, where, if they take them lightly and they let them get up too many threes and, they start making them, like they're going to get in trouble early and then they're going to have to dig themselves out of a hole. Granted, we did see last year the Knicks, kind of relished that role in the in-season tournament specifically. They had one of their better wins of the year, which feels like a million years ago because it was pre-OG Anunoby, but had a phenomenal game out of Emmanuel Quickley last year and a huge comeback against Miami, which basically saved their in-season tournament chances. I have no doubt that at least one of these games will be one of those where the Knicks come in taking it a little too lightly, get in trouble, and then have to fight their way back. If I had to put money on which game that would be, possibly that Charlotte game. But the other game it can maybe be, because I feel pretty good about the Brooklyn one, if I'm being completely honest, would be Orlando, who you would think would be kind of in the dumps right now, having lost Paolo Banchero for 4 to 6 weeks, I believe was the diagnosis there, waiting for his injury to get better. But and the Knicks, even though they're playing Orlando on December 3rd, which is still like 3 weeks away, that I think Orlando, unless Paolo comes back like on the money the day that he, like the earliest day possible, I'm pretty sure that Orlando will still be without him, which obviously bad news for the league, but and not having one of their young stars available for that chunk of the season, but great for the Knicks if he's not going to be suiting up for Orlando. So that's good for them. But that said, you pulled the stat, Franz Wagner's last 6 games, 27 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.5 blocks. He's balling out. And they are on, I mean, this is projecting far out because they still have a number of weeks of games to play before the Knicks end up facing them. But as of right now, they're 7-6, and they're on a 4-game win streak. Even if it's been an easy schedule, you pulled this stat, they've held all 4 opponents under 95 points, and they're tied for the Knicks for 7th in the NBA in net rating, despite being a bottom 7 offense. So there's sort of a alternate version of the Knicks right now, where they're high in that net rating, but really bad on offense, whereas the Knicks are high in that net rating, but really bad on defense at the moment. So definitely going to be an intriguing matchup there, and possibly a slog. Hopefully the Knicks have kind of figured out their defensive identity a little more by then, would be my biggest hope.
Yeah, I am obviously, to your point, beneficial to the Knicks if Powell's not playing. I'm really interested to see that matchup at full strength, because we remember Orlando won their first 3 games against the Knicks last year, and the Knicks were never healthy in any of those games. Like, they were always missing either Jalen Brunson or basically everyone but Jalen Brunson. And one of those games was immediately after the OG Anunoby trade, but before he was on the team. That's when Dante scored like 4. Oh, maybe it was the Pacers game where he scored 40 and they still lost. Anyways, point is they played some weird games against the Orlando Magic last year. So I really want to see what both teams look like at full strength. I want to see how Orlando defends Towns. Like, I kind of wonder if that becomes like a big Jonathan Isaac game and they try to play him the bulk of the minutes instead of trying to have Wendell Carter stick with him out there. How the Knicks guard Paolo. Like, I think OG is about as well equipped as anyone in the league to like handle his strength and his size and make him have a really tough night. Mikal versus Franz, or like Franz is a better scorer, but they are kind of mirror images of each other in terms of how they play. Like, Franz certainly is more of a bag on offense, but like if you were going to design it, like it's kind of like, do you remember that Justice League comic / movie where it's like Batman designs like the contingency plans? I think it was the Judas Protocol for like all the different members of the Justice League. It feels like the Knicks are that for the Magic, where they have like these weird counterparts for everyone on their team. But then Orlando kind of has that for the Knicks with Isaac to put on Cat and Suggs to throw out Brunson. So I think it's like, it's a weird, like in our case, heroes versus villains matchup. And I'm excited. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe the in-season tournament is just a bad product and I have to go to insane lengths to sell it. But that's where I'm going in my head.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. I kind of feel that the in-season tournament is not a great product. So I'm ready to get into that, because, this Magic one, not too much worth talking about until we get a couple weeks down the line and we can see what both these teams are looking like. But let's talk about the in-season tournament and whether we think it's a good idea in just a sec. But first, I want to remind you all about our good friends over at FanDuel, and get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And I was looking through some odds, and this has become a weekly tradition for me, Gavin. I look and I say, aren't they favoring the Jets this week? And look at that. They're favoring the Jets again. I just don't get it. The Jets stink. They're really bad. I've never seen a team this bad for this big of a chunk of the season get favored every single week for no real good reason. And they're up against the Indianapolis Colts. They're playing at home. The Colts are going back to Anthony Richardson this week. I'm not fully an Anthony Richardson guy. And yet the thought of this Jets defense, where they currently are right now, being favored by 3.5 points over a team that employs a quarterback that is trying to fight for his job back and who is a strong rusher, scary thought. I think the Jets are going to lose by at least a touchdown in this game. So bet against them. Bet against my favorite team. I hate them. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Gavin. So from the Jets that I hate in that ad read to the in-season tournament that I hate in this third segment. Yeah, I'm still not sold on this thing. I know that a lot of people talked themselves into thinking that they thought it was cool last year. And I can appreciate, I guess, in some ways, the fanfare of it all. And it's kind of neat that the NBA is trying to make random regular season games in this like sort of normally like a dead zone of the season. Like a lot of people don't, I don't even think really realize or care that the NBA is even going before Christmas. Like that's just sort of the unofficial start date for a lot of like more casual fans to the start of the NBA season. Just because, you have football before that, everybody wants to watch their football teams first and foremost. And then when, most of the NFL gets knocked out around Christmas, towards the end of the season before the playoffs, then all those markets are like, okay, well, now it's time to start paying attention to the NBA. I get that to a degree. That said, I just think they've done such a poor job of, first off, propping this thing up so much when over the years they've just done increasingly less and less to make the finals feel like it's special. Just feels wrong to me. Like going all out with like every single team is going to get a custom court for every single one of these games. Every single team is going to be wearing their city edition uniforms specifically for these games. And every single team is, or every single game now is going to have a special ball that we're only going to use during NBA Cup games. And we're going to put all these logos everywhere. And they've got, they even have it boggles my mind as someone who loves the aesthetics of sports and like the little things that go into like the design and presentation of sports. Like it boggles my mind that they have nixed the iconic Larry O'Brien trophy in the middle of the team's courts during the finals for years now. And that used to be like, I don't know, there was something magical about that. Like I remember when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old watching like the Spurs and the Lakers and the Nets and the Sixers and all them like playing in the finals, and you would just watch those games and it just felt, the atmosphere felt different having like that big old trophy, like this giant reminder of what they were playing for on the court every single game. And now like they've just stripped all that away. They've stripped away all fanfare from the finals, and it just feels like games now. It's just regular old games, nothing special about these. Like it's just a playoff series, I guess. And meanwhile, the in-season tournament, they're doing the same thing that they stopped doing with the NBA Finals courts, and they're putting like a giant in-season tournament, or sorry, NBA Cup trophy, whatever, in the middle, and just reminding everybody with these giant gaudy neon signs of like they're playing for something right now. And it's like, but what they're playing for doesn't matter. So I'll keep ranting if I just keep going. So I'll throw it to you just on that one. Like that's the first thing that annoys me. I hate that they're propping this up as some enormous thing when, as we saw last year, it's almost like it's almost a meme at this point, going back and watching like the Lakers celebration from that, acting like they had won like a championship or something. And by the end of the year, it's like the Lakers sucked last year. Like they didn't win anything, like why were they celebrating like this meant anything at all other than just like the NBA getting to put a stamp on forever and say LeBron James won the first NBA in-season tournament at time, now NBA Cup. It just, I don't know, the stakes, the manufactured stakes they're trying to put on it, I think is the first thing that really kind of grinds my gears about the in-season tournament.
Yeah, what I can't comprehend is that it feels so simple to make this matter. Guarantee the winner a top 4 seed. Like, boom, you're done. Like, could you imagine the luxury that would be for any team? Like if the Knicks went out and won it, like there would be drama in every single one of these games, because then you could sit Jalen Brunson every back-to-back the rest of the season. You could sit OG Anunoby every back-to-back the rest of the season, right? It gives you so much flexibility, and maybe that's why the NBA doesn't want to do it, because they don't want to incentivize the team for sitting their stars. But to me, like the ceiling there is like what you get with March Madness every year, where a team that is 13-21 catches fire in the freaking SWAC conference and makes the NCAA tournament because they got hot for 4 games. Like I just talked about them. Imagine the Charlotte Hornets going crazy. LaMelo Ball puts up 42 points over 4 games. And if you're the Hornets fan, you're like, oh my God, we're going to be the 4 seed this year. And instead of doing that, instead of having an actual incentive where there is literally none outside of, again, getting your bench players paid, there was a negative incentive right now. Like the Knicks last year had to play the Bucks and the Celtics an extra time apiece. It gave them less rest. It made their schedule harder. They ended up getting the 2 seed, but like just barely, like by the skin of their teeth. Like if I'm Tom Thibodeau, why do I even want to win these games? I'm saying, hey, like these are guaranteed games against better teams in the NBA, and there's no reward for it. There's only a punishment for doing well in this thing that you are suddenly trying to make a centerpiece of your season. And the reward just seems so simple, so clear to me, and like so easy to do. in a way that would like give this thing real drama. And the NBA just, for whatever reason, is not going that direction.
Yeah, I think even if you took it a slight step lower, like let's say instead of a top 4, if you want to be like, all right, maybe that's a bit much because like you said, if some team catches fire and then gets home court advantage in the first round and they're like a below 500 team, like maybe that looks like a bad look. Okay, lower the stakes like 20% and say, okay, instead of that, you get a guaranteed playoff spot. So you get at least the 6th seed.
Yeah,
like
sure.
so you don't have to play in the play-in. Like, or I mean, you could even go a step lower than that, even, and just be like, you get the 7th seed no matter what. So you have to still win your way in through the play-in, but you get 2 home games to try to win your way into the playoffs, guaranteed, no matter what your whole season turns into. But I think if you did the 6th seed, that would be fine. I think like that adds real intrigue to it. And then there's only one of those spots available for the whole league too. So that's the other thing. It's not even like you're saying, hey, the 2 teams that make the final get it. It's like, no, winner take all. Like, and this makes a real East versus West type thing. And it would feel more akin then to like the only league that has figured out all-star games, which is the MLB, where the all-star game determines home field advantage for the World Series. Like that is a big incentive. Like that's something that makes the all-star game feel worth it. And granted, like baseball's all-star game is a little different than like other sports where it's easier to shuffle players in and whatever, and like strategize a little more without exerting guys to the point where you think that you might like hurt them or whatever in an all-star game. So fine, but all these, for the most part, most of these games are regular season games anyway, but you're still, and I mean, this is another one of my gripes, your quote reward for this is like, hey, all the multi-gazillionaires get like $1 million bonus, and which is less than a game check anyway, and you're playing an 83rd regular season game that you get no credit for. And so then, we saw guys like Jalen Brunson kind of brought up, like, I think he even like name dropped like Jericho Sims last year. It was just like, like we've got guys like Jericho, like on the end of the bench that like are not making as much money as role players here. Like $1 million is life changing for them. So like, we're trying to win it for them because they all get $1 million too. And yet, like, is that really like enough incentive? Like, I feel like it's
also no fan care. Like, not that, like, sure, like I'm happy for Jericho Sims who makes $1 million. The 15th guy is 99th percent income in the United States. Like that's hard for every man to get behind that, I guess.
And it's also just like on top of the fact that they're all multimillionaires in the NBA, it's also just the fact that like the casual fan that's not listening to Locked On Knicks every day, that's not listening to, Knicks Film School and the Strickland and reading and consuming every little thing that comes out, about the Knicks and whatever, like they don't even know who the 15th man on the bench is. Like they watch occasionally, they like Jalen Brunson, they, want to see Cat play or whatever. Like that's it. Like, so that being the incentive just doesn't really work for me. It just feels like, again, like Adam Silver loves Euro soccer. He wanted to try to pull some trope from there, something that they do and make it his own. And so he chose an in-season tournament, and yet the ones over there, I think have actual like circumstance, like things that happen because of them. Like, I mean, I know in the European leagues as well, the European soccer leagues, there's like, there's straight up like demotions and promotions of teams and everything else. Like teams go from effectively the G League over there, or maybe a more apt comparison is like if a baseball AAA team was able to play their way up to becoming a major league team, like that can happen over there. So those things all kind of matter all the time over there, no matter what you're doing. Like wins matter, whatever. Over here, it's like it just doesn't matter. Like the NBA needs, I don't know, they need to do something to make this more worth it. And I just feel like it'll never pass the sniff test in collective bargaining if they try to do the idea like what we were saying, even though that makes it more interesting. But like the players would just flatly like refuse to, like the players union will not play ball on that, or even the owners might not play ball on that because they might be like, hell no, like my team that I'm paying luxury tax for or whatever is not going to get booted by some team that got hot in November, to out of the playoffs, like that's just not going to happen. So I don't know if there's even a way to fix this. If I'm being honest, my number one thing that I kind of just hope happens at this point it just fizzles and is gone in like 2 years. Cause I think they've invested too much for this to be gone like next year at this point. But hopefully, like if between this year and next year, like maybe some players start getting vocal about this and being like, I don't really know what the point of this thing is. Maybe Adam Silver just kind of sees the writing on the wall and just axes it at a certain point.
Yeah, look, I don't want to be totally negative because like it was fun last year, but it was almost like I didn't know why it was fun. And like I guess it got competitive because these guys are competitive lunatics and like it's not hard to sell them on a narrative like that this matters because and it's a credit to everyone in the NBA that it was fun. But very similar to the All-Star game, like I don't think it has a long shelf life. Like I think you can get people behind it for 1 year when it was new and fresh, maybe 2 years when it's new and fresh. But like the All-Star game, at a certain point, guys are going to start looking around and being like, why am I killing myself when I could have like a few days off? And instead of playing the Celtics and the Bucks, I play whatever, like the Hornets and the Hawks, like an extra time. So that's where this falls apart for me. But you know what? It's happening. I will still enjoy the weird courts. I will enjoy it if the Knicks get in. I will talk myself into being interested in the do or die games, even though there's no real reason to. I'm sure some of you at home will as well. And I'm glad we could talk through it because it got me. It was like a little therapy session for me. Anyways, he's Alex Wolfe. I'm Gavin Schall. We will be back with a rare Saturday episode for you, breaking down the first game against the Nets. So don't miss that. But until next time, this was Locked On Knicks. Peace out.